Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so you guys sent in this episode, and it's called The 7 Women to Marry Finding the Heart Aligned with God.
Mm-hmm.
It's from a show called The Sunshine Inside.
Okay.
And honestly, I'm a little obsessed with this already.
Yeah, right.
I mean, on the surface, it sounds like straight-up marriage advice.
Yeah.
But something tells me we're going to uncover something way more profound here.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating how this episode uses this whole finding a spouse thing as a way to get into deeper character traits.
Right.
We're not just talking compatibility quizzes here,
Right.
This is about building a life that's really grounded in faith and strength and, whether you're single, married, or somewhere in between.
Absolutely. All right, so let's jump right in. The episode presents 7 biblical women as these potential role models.
Okay.
Starting with Abigail, the wise and diplomatic peacemaker. I mean, talk about a high-pressure situation. The podcast highlights how she basically single-handedly prevented a disaster caused by her husband, Nabal.
Yeah, Abigail's story, it goes way beyond just averting that crisis.
Right.
It's really about, navigating tricky situations
Yeah.
with foresight
Yes.
and tact and the courage to act when it's necessary.
Mm.
She saw what could happen because of her husband's actions, and she took steps to, to kind of smooth things over.
Wow.
And she really understood people and, the bigger picture, too.
It's a dilemma we all face, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you stay quiet just to keep the peace, or do you speak up even though it might make things worse?
Oh, for sure.
It's like Abigail's story is a masterclass in navigating that tension.
Yeah.
And what I find so fascinating is that she managed to be both strong and strategic at the same time.
Right.
Like, how do we learn to do that? How do we cultivate that kind of wisdom?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's really interesting that the episode acknowledges that Abigail's husband was a difficult guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of saying that even if your relationship is tough, you can still do the right thing.
Right. You can still make a positive impact.
Exactly.
That's actually really empowering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Abigail showed us the power of diplomacy.
Yes.
But Esther's story, this takes us to a different kind of courage, right?
Totally.
She's described as the courageous and compassionate leader. And her story is epic.
It is, isn't it? She literally saves her whole people.
I know. From annihilation.
It's amazing.
Okay, so what I think is so striking about her story is how it, challenges what we usually think of as leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Here's this young woman. She suddenly has all this power.
Right.
But she uses it so wisely and with so much compassion.
Yeah, the episode focuses on her bravery, of course.
Right.
But also, her humility.
Yes.
Which you don't always see that in stories about leaders.
You know what I love? They mention her beauty. They mention her high status.
Yeah.
But then they shift right away and talk about her faith and how she prayed to God for guidance.
Right.
It's like it really challenges this idea that you have to be conventionally attractive.
Yeah.
Or powerful to make a difference in the world.
It really does. I think Esther's story asks us, what does real leadership look like?
Mm-hmm.
Is it about having a fancy title or looking a certain way?
Right.
Or is it about something much deeper?
Yeah, like using your gifts, your influence.
Exactly.
To help others, to make the world better.
To serve a greater purpose.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can we be more like Esther? How can we cultivate that kind of courage, especially if we don't feel powerful ourselves?
It's a great question. I think it comes down to finding that inner strength.
Mm-hmm.
And that often comes from faith or a strong sense of purpose. Like Esther shows us, even when you're up against impossible odds, you can still find the courage to get out of your comfort zone and act according to your values.
Do what's right.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've seen diplomacy with Abigail, courage with Esther.
Yeah.
Now we meet Rebecca, the hospitable and hardworking helper.
Interesting.
The episode really focuses on her selflessness. Like she went above and beyond for a total stranger.
Yeah.
But it makes you think, is that always a good thing?
Right. Rebecca's story, it's interesting because it's all about those traditional values, right?
Yeah, like hospitality, hard work.
Exactly. But it also makes us ask, is it really possible to always put others first?
Right.
And where do you draw the line between being helpful and, having healthy boundaries?
I've really struggled with that myself.
Yeah.
Like, where is that line between being supportive and losing yourself in the process?
It's tough.
I mean, Rebecca's actions, they're amazing.
They are.
But did she ever feel like she was losing herself?
Yeah, and I think that's where critical thinking comes in. We can admire her generosity, but also We need to remember that it's not selfish to take care of ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
And set some limits.
Yeah, it's essential.
If you really want to help others effectively.
Okay, so we've seen how Rebecca's story kind of makes us think about the limits of self-sacrifice. But now we meet Ruth, and her devotion takes things to a whole new level.
Oh, yeah.
She is the devoted and faithful soul.
Okay.
And her loyalty to Naomi, it's legendary, right?
It is.
I mean, talk about commitment.
Yeah.
She left her country, her family, everything she knew to be with Naomi.
That's incredible.
It's a powerful story of commitment.
It is.
Her devotion to Naomi was absolute.
Yeah.
And that kind of loyalty, it's so inspiring.
It really is.
But I can't help but wonder, is that level of sacrifice always necessary? Is it healthy even?
That's a really good point.
It makes you think, does true devotion require that you give up your whole life?
Right.
The episode praises her for it, and I get that. But it feels like there's more to the story.
I think so, too. Ruth's story, it really makes us think about what real devotion looks like in our own lives.
Yes.
Does it always have to involve that kind of all-in self-sacrifice?
Yeah.
Or are there other ways to be committed to our loved ones
Right.
while still, honoring our own needs?
So it's about staying true to yourself.
Exactly.
While also being a good friend, partner, daughter.
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
It is.
And that balance might be different for everybody.
Absolutely. Ruth's story is powerful. It reminds us how important loyalty is.
Yes.
But it also challenges us to figure out what that looks like for us personally.
Exactly. In our own, in our own situations.
Okay, let's talk about Martha,
Okay.
the hospitable and confident woman. She seems like the ultimate get-it-done type.
She does. The episode talks about her practicality and her really strong belief in Jesus.
Right.
She was definitely a woman of action.
Yeah.
But also, of deep conviction.
And they do mention that she was busy.
They do.
Which I think is something we can all relate to.
Absolutely.
And it raises a good question.
What's that?
Can we be too focused on tasks? And maybe miss the bigger picture?
I think a lot of us struggle with that, especially these days.
Well,
with everything moving so fast, we're all about achieving things.
Yeah.
Martha's story reminds us to slow down,
yes.
take a breath, and think about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Are we so busy doing that we forget about our spiritual side?
A relationship.
The things that really matter.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It really is. We get obsessed with checking things off our to-do lists.
Yeah.
And we forget to take care of our inner lives.
So true. So Martha's story, it's a little nudge.
Yeah.
To remind us that balance is key.
I like that. It is a nudge.
We need action, yes. But we also need contemplation.
Yes.
Practicality and spirituality.
Yes. It's about finding that rhythm.
Right.
That helps us live a full life.
Yes, an authentic life.
Exactly.
Okay, so we go from the practical Martha to her sister Mary, who's like the faithful and consecrated servant. She's known for accepting God's will, even when things are really, really tough.
Yeah.
I have to say, that kind of faith, it's inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also a little intimidating,
Mary's story, it's all about deep faith.
Yeah.
And surrender. She was chosen for this incredible, but also really challenging purpose.
Right.
And she just embraced it with
Yeah.
so much grace and humility. Her story, it really makes us think about how we figure out what God wants for us in our own lives.
Yeah.
What does it mean to surrender to something bigger than ourselves?
That's the question, isn't it? It's easy to say accept God's will.
Right.
But how do we actually know what that is, especially with everything going on in our lives? And honestly, can blind obedience ever be a bad thing?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think there are any easy answers.
Right.
Mary's story, it's meant to inspire us, not give us a set of rules. It shows us how powerful faith can be,
Right.
but it doesn't mean we shouldn't think for ourselves.
Right. So it's not about blindly following orders.
Right.
It's about seeking guidance,
Yeah,
praying, meditating, and then making choices based on our own values.
absolutely. Mary's story, it's a beautiful example of faith in action,
Yeah.
but it's also a reminder to really engage with our faith, to actively seek understanding.
And wisdom.
Yes, as we figure out this crazy thing called life.
Okay, and finally we have the Shulamite woman.
Ah,
She's the faithful and loving heart.
okay.
And the episode praises her unwavering love. She even rejected King Solomon.
Wow, to stay true to the man she actually loved.
I know. That's commitment.
The Shulamite woman, her story is all about true love. You know, a love that goes beyond money, status, even temptation.
Yeah.
It's a love that's based on a deep connection, mutual respect, shared values.
It's not superficial, it's real.
Exactly.
That's what I love.
Yeah.
She wasn't swayed by Solomon and all his riches and power.
Right. She knew what was important.
She knew what mattered in her heart.
Yeah, it shows she had integrity. I think her story makes us think about what we look for in relationships.
Yeah, are we drawn to, like, superficial things?
Right.
Or do we want something deeper?
Something that connects with our souls.
Yes, something real.
And I think the Shulamite woman's devotion, it shows that real love,
Yeah.
it's not just about a fleeting passion.
It's about something more.
It runs deeper than that.
Okay, we've covered all 7 women.
We have.
And I am feeling inspired, overwhelmed, and like I need to take some notes.
I hear you.
It's amazing how this one episode managed to cover so many themes. Leadership, faith, love, service, self-discovery. It's a lot.
I know, it's so compelling, and it goes way beyond just finding a spouse.
Yeah.
It's really about becoming the best version of ourselves.
It is.
No matter what our relationship status is.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
For our listener.
Yeah.
They sent us this episode, right? About these biblical women.
Right.
We go deep into analyzing these characters.
Yeah.
But what does it all mean for them?
That's the big question.
What are the key takeaways?
I think the biggest takeaway is that it's important to develop your character.
Okay.
The episode frames these women as ideal wives, but the qualities they have,
Yeah.
wisdom, courage, compassion, loyalty, faithfulness, strong values,
Right.
those are important for everyone.
Yeah. Not just for finding a husband.
No, not at all. They're for anyone who's trying to figure out life.
Or on a spiritual path.
Yeah, exactly. It's about developing those inner strengths that help you live a meaningful life.
And it's interesting how the episode uses this idea of finding a husband
Yeah.
as a way to explore these bigger themes.
It's a brilliant strategy.
It is.
Because everybody loves a good love story.
Right.
But it goes beyond that.
Yeah.
It makes us think about what really matters in any relationship.
Right. Romantic, platonic.
All of them. It's about seeing how these character traits,
Yeah.
they're valuable in all kinds of relationships.
Okay. So what questions should our listener be asking themselves? What's the homework assignment?
All right. First, I'd say think about which of these women you connect with most.
Okay.
It's not about picking a favorite.
Right.
It's about seeing which qualities resonate with you.
Oh, I like that. It's like a personality quiz, but deeper.
Exactly. And then ask yourself, how can you embody those qualities in your own unique way?
Yeah.
Because there's no one right way to live a good life.
Right. Each of these women had their own challenges.
Yes.
They made choices based on their own situations.
And we need to do the same.
Right. We can find inspiration from their stories, but ultimately we have to create our own path.
Exactly. And I think that's a powerful message.
It is.
It's not about trying to fit in.
Right.
It's about embracing who you are
And using your strengths.
to make a difference.
I love that. So to sum it all up, this episode, it's not just about finding a husband.
Yep.
It's about becoming a better person,
Yes.
figuring out who you are, living a life that's true to your values.
And it reminds us that we can find inspiration in unexpected places.
Like in ancient religious texts.
Who knew?
It's all about how we interpret those stories and find the wisdom that speaks to us.
Which is exactly what we do here on the Deep Dive, right?
We take complex info and break it down.
Yeah, make it easy to understand.
And hopefully entertaining, too.
I think we do a pretty good job.
Well, it's up to our listener to decide what resonates with them
That's right.
and how they want to use these insights in their own lives.
Okay, so a final thought for our listener.
Ooh, I like it.
The podcast talks about 7 specific women from the Bible.
Right?
But there are so many other biblical figures.
Oh, yeah. Men and women.
Whose stories can teach us so much.
We've only scratched the surface here.
Exactly. So I'd say go explore.
Yeah.
Dive into other biblical stories. See what catches your eye.
Right.
Maybe you'll find a new role model.
Yeah.
Or a new perspective that makes you think differently.
Maybe you'll even come up with your own list of role models.
Ooh, I like that.
From history, books, even your own life.
The possibilities are endless.
That's the beauty of these ancient texts, right?
Yeah.
They're full of wisdom and insights.
That's still relevant today.
Yeah, no matter who you are or what you believe.
I agree. Just approach these stories with an open mind. Be willing to learn.
And grow.
But remember, it's not about copying someone else's life.
Right.
It's about creating your own.
Yeah.
And making your own unique contribution to the world.
And that's what makes life so exciting. We can all be role models by being ourselves.
Oh, exactly.
Sharing our gifts with the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that was fun.
It was.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been great exploring these stories with you.
And with our listener.
Yes. So to wrap things up, what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
That's a good question. I hope they realize that they don't need anyone's permission to be great. They already have what it takes to make a difference.
I love that.
It's about owning your power, stepping into your potential.
And not waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to shine.
Yes, these women were trailblazers.
They were?
And we can be too.
Yes.
By living intentionally.
With courage.
And staying true to our values.
So whether you're looking for love or happy being single,
it doesn't matter.
The message is the same.
Yeah.
Build your character, nurture your faith.
And go out there and make your mark.
That's it. Thanks again for joining me on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure. Until next time, keep diving deep.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we've talked a lot about these women as individuals.
Right.
But there's also this theme of sisterhood that runs through the episode.
Oh, definitely. Like with Martha and Mary.
Yeah, they had totally different personalities.
Total opposites.
But they were still there for each other.
Absolutely. And think about Ruth and Naomi.
Oh, their bond was unbreakable.
They supported each other through some really tough times.
It makes you think about the importance of having strong female friendships in your own life.
Oh, for sure. We all need that kind of support system.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to bring it all back to our listener,
yeah.
What's the one piece of advice you'd give them based on these 7 stories?
I'd say don't be afraid to embrace all sides of yourself.
Oh, I like that.
Like these women were strong and compassionate, practical and spiritual.
Right. Well,
they were leaders. A&D, they were helpers.
yeah, they didn't fit into any neat little boxes.
Exactly, and neither should we.
So be the complex, amazing, multifaceted person you are.
Exactly. Celebrate all those different parts of yourself.
Love that message. Well, I think we've given our listener a lot to chew on today.
We have. It's been quite a journey.
It has. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
And remember, you've got this.